Saving money used to be the smartest thing you could do. And if I'm being honest, that's why so many people are stuck right now. And before you click off this video, this isn't me telling you to be irresponsible, reckless, or just straight up dumb with money. This isn't me telling you not to save, it's not me telling you to YOLO your paycheck, and it's definitely not me shilling some random crypto coin. This is about something way more uncomfortable. It's about the fact that saving money the way we were taught is quietly failing, and a lot of people haven't realized it yet. Because here's the problem: if saving money actually worked like the way we were promised, if it truly led to security, peace of mind, and financial freedom, why do so many people who save still continuously feel anxious? Why do they still feel behind? And why does one unexpected expense wipe out months of doing the right thing? Think about it. You cut back, you skip things, you're disciplined, you tell yourself, I'll enjoy life later, sacrifice the present for a better future. Yet later never really comes. Now, again, I'm not saying that saving money is stupid by any means. I'm just saying that the world has changed and we haven't really updated our thinking yet. Saving money was built for a completely different environment. It was built for when wages rose steadily, costs moved slowly, careers lasted decades, and emergencies were rare, not constant. Back then, saving money actually bought you time. But in 2026, saving money oftentimes just buys you a softer landing when something goes wrong. And that's the uncomfortable truth that nobody really wants to say out loud, because saving feels responsible. It feels safe, and it kind of feels like progress. But feeling responsible isn't the same thing as actually getting ahead. What's happening right now is that millions, maybe billions of people are doing exactly what they were taught to do. Saving, budgeting, being careful, but still losing ground. Not because they're lazy or that they're bad with money, but because they're playing defense in a game that no longer rewards defense. And most people think the answer is just to save harder, more discipline, more sacrifice, more I'll just tighten up for a few months. But if saving money was the answer, why does it feel like the finish line just keeps moving further and further away? Why does saving $10,000 today feel less impressive than saving $5,000 just a couple years ago? Why does having money in the bank no longer bring peace, but more so just temporary relief? This video is not about abandoning your savings. It's about explaining why saving alone no longer works, what it actually does now, and what has to replace it if you want real financial stability going into 2026 and far beyond. Because the truth is, saving didn't fail because people stopped being disciplined. It failed because the rules changed, quietly, and nobody really told you about it. And once you really understand this and see why, you're never going to look at your bank account the same way again. Now let's take emotions out of it, because math alone really explains why saving money feels so frustrating now. Most people think that their savings are growing simply because the number in their bank account is going up. But money doesn't work in isolation. It only matters what that money can actually buy. And this is where everything breaks. Let's say you did everything completely right. You worked, you sacrificed, and you saved $10,000. That sounds solid, that sounds responsible, but here's the uncomfortable part. If inflation averages around 4%, and in many real-world categories, it's even higher than that, that $10,000 you just saved loses roughly $400 of purchasing power every single year just by sitting there. Not because you used it, not because you messed up, but because the value of money itself is eroding. And before somebody jumps in the comments talking about high-yield savings accounts pay 4% every year, let's talk about what that actually means. That's not by any means making you richer, it's just helping you lose value more slowly. You're not compounding forward, you're just simply treading water. Now let's put this into real life. Think about rent. A couple years ago, an apartment that costed, let's say, $1,200 a month might now cost $1,600 a month. That's almost $5,000 extra dollars per year just to live in the exact same type of place. Groceries, insurance, car repairs, they didn't rise neatly in 4%, they jumped in chunks. So even if your savings balance looks healthy, your lifestyle buying power is quietly shrinking underneath you. And that's why most people think that they're doing everything right, but still falling behind somehow. Here's another example. Let's say you save $500 a month. That's $6,000 a year. That's discipline. But if your cost of living raises $6,000 to $8,000 per year, which is very realistic, your savings didn't actually move you forward. All it did was keep you from sliding backwards faster. And that's not growth, that's survival. And while survival used to be the baseline, it's now a goal for a lot of people. And here's the key thing that most typical financial advice just skips right on over. Saving money preserves nominal numbers, the number on your screen. What it doesn't preserve is your lifestyle, your future options, or your margin for error. And that's why saving money feels heavier now than it used to. You're carrying more weight just to stand still. And the scary part is that most people look at their bank balance and feel safe, even when the numbers scream that they aren't. They see $8,000, $12,000, or even $20,000 saved. But what they don't see is how fast expenses can actually erase that. One medical bill, one car issue, or job disruption, and suddenly months or years of discipline just disappear. Here's the part that nobody actually wants to admit. Saving money didn't just fail mathematically, it failed psychologically. Because saving money was never actually a financial strategy, it was more of a story. A story that we were told over and over and over again while we were growing up. If you save consistently, if you avoid debt, you'll eventually feel safe. And for a long time, that story was actually true. Our parents and grandparents saved into a world where jobs lasted decades, raises were predictable, housing didn't double in a few years, and a single income could really support an entire household. Saving money worked because the future wasn't moving away from them. Here's the lie that we inherited, and this is important. We were taught to save as if the finish line was fixed. It's not. And in 2026, the finish line moves faster than your savings can actually catch it. That's why saving money doesn't bring peace anymore, it brings tension. You save, but you don't relax. You hit milestones, but they don't really feel like accomplishments anymore. And that's not because you're ungrateful or impatient. It's because saving turned into a comfort behavior, not a solution. It gives you that feeling of control even when control is slipping. Saving teaches you to tolerate discomfort now for relief later. That works, but only when later actually arrives. But when later keeps getting delayed, savings turn into chronic anxiety dressed up as responsibility. People start to blame themselves and say things like, I should be saving more, I shouldn't have bought that, or I need more discipline. While meanwhile, the real problem is that the strategy is outdated, not the person. This is why so many financially responsible people feel way more stressed than the reckless people. Saving was supposed to create freedom, but instead, for many people, it just created a holding pattern. Now let's talk about something that feels almost untouchable in personal finance, the emergency fund. Because the moment you mention it, people assume that you're going to be saying something reckless. So let me be very clear up front. I'm not telling you that you shouldn't have money set aside for emergencies. What I am saying is the way that emergency funds are taught, the size, the purpose, where that money actually sits, hasn't been updated for the reality of 2026. And because of that, what was once a safety net quietly turned into a trap for a lot of people. Emergency funds were designed for a world where emergencies were rare, short, and isolated. A medical bill, a car repair, a brief job gap. You'd save 3 to 6 months worth of expenses, you'd dip into it, and then you'd replenish it. Look around. Financial instability isn't rare anymore, it's constant. So what happens? People respond by hoarding more cash. 6 months turns into 9, and then quickly 9 turns into 12. And that's where the trap forms. Because while that money is just sitting there, just in case, life keeps getting more expensive. And your opportunity to improve your position quietly gets passed up. Having access to money is different than parking money indefinitely. Liquidity does not have to mean stagnation. And in 2026, access matters a hell of a lot more than hoarding. Emergency funds were meant to buy you time, but that only matters if something productive happens during that time. If your emergency fund is just there to be there, with no plan, no adaptability, no leverage, it becomes a psychological crutch. It makes you feel prepared while quietly limiting your growth. That's why so many people with large emergency funds still feel anxious. Have you noticed how saving money used to make people feel proud, and now it just kind of makes them feel tired? This is one of the strangest shifts in modern money psychology. Because if you zoom out, a lot of people today are objectively more disciplined than past generations. They track expenses, they start cutting at home, they get rid of some subscriptions, but they still feel poorer. Not broke, but poorer. Like they're constantly one step behind no matter how carefully they move. And that's simply because everything got compressed. Rent went up, insurance went up, food went up, transportation went up, and not in isolation, all at once. So when you save, your margin doesn't really expand. You're doing all the work, all the right things, but you're still not getting the psychological reward. Saving money today often reduces your tolerance for risk, not increases it. Because when your progress feels fragile, you protect it at all costs. And you stop playing to advance, you start playing to avoid pain. So simply put, saving money in this environment doesn't buy peace. It buys time, and only a little bit. And if nothing changes during that time, the anxiety comes right back. One mistake that everybody is quietly making in 2026 that feels responsible but is actually secretly expensive is the idea of that if you just avoid mistakes, play it safe, if you don't mess up, you'll eventually win. But money doesn't work like that anymore. Playing defense can keep you alive, but it won't move you forward. Here's what defense looks like in real life. You stay at a job that you've outgrown just because it feels secure. Or you avoid learning new skills because you can't risk the time or money. Or you pass on new opportunities just because your savings finally feel okay. And none of these decisions necessarily feel wrong in the moment, they feel prudent. But slowly, quietly, they cap your upside. While meanwhile, the world doesn't slow down to reward your caution. Prices keep rising, technology keeps shifting, and opportunities move to people who are positioned, not just prepared. In 2026, the biggest risk isn't just losing money, it's losing time in a system that rewards positioning rather than patience. You can sit around and spend years playing defense without really realizing the cost until it compounds. So, if saving money can't really be the main strategy anymore, what replaces it? This is where most financial advice just completely falls apart because the usual answer is invest more, start a side hustle, or to just simply make more money. And that's not wrong, it's just incomplete and kind of lazy. Because in 2026, the people who will actually be stable aren't just the ones with the biggest savings accounts. They're the ones with the most leverage and the most options. Now, let me explain what that means in real terms. The old definition of safety was, how long can I survive without income? And today, the new definition is, how fast can I generate income if something goes wrong? And that single shift really changes everything because cash alone really doesn't solve problems anymore. Response speed does. Here are the real assets replacing savings as the primary strategy. Rather than hoarding 12 months worth of expenses, resilient people build systems that generate money consistently. A few $100s a month coming in from different directions does more for your nervous system than a random $5,000 does just sitting still. Why? Because it proves income is renewable. Savings feel finite and cash flow feels alive. And the second skill is liquidity. This is still the most underrated form of financial security in 2025 and going into 2026. A liquid skill is something that you could turn into money easily, like sales, outreach, editing, technical problem solving, operations, automation, or content distribution. Not because it's trendy, but because it converts time into money quickly. Somebody that has a monetizable skill but only $2,000 saved is oftentimes a lot safer than somebody that has $15,000 saved but no leverage. And that's because skills don't depreciate the way that cash does. And third, optionality often beats net worth early on. Net worth looks impressive on paper, but optionality feels powerful in real life. What optionality means is that you can change jobs without panic. You can survive short income gaps. You can take calculated risks. And that you're not trapped by one outcome. Savings alone won't give you that, but options will. Fourth is access to capital, not fear of it. This part makes people uncomfortable, but it really matters. People were taught to fear credit, to avoid it, to see it as danger. But in reality, unused, understood credit is optionality. It's not about debt, it's about access. Somebody that has controlled credit and discipline can solve problems a lot faster than somebody with cash but no flexibility. The mistake isn't credit, the mistake is unplanned credit. And finally, time to income thinking. Most people obsess over net worth, while resilient people stress over how fast they can replace income if they lose it. That's the real metric in 2026. If losing $5,000 would take you 2 years to recover, that's fragile. But if it would only take you 2 months, that's power. Saving money doesn't address that question. Systems do, skills do, and positioning does. And once you build around response speed instead of hoarding, saving money stops feeling like your only lifeline. Like I said before, saving money isn't dead, but saving without intention is. People argue in extremes, either save everything or saving's useless and you should invest it all. But both of these people miss the point. In 2026, smart saving isn't about how much you save, it's about why that money exists and what it's waiting for. Saving should no longer be a permanent parking lot, it should be a staging area. If it just sits there indefinitely, it decays. But if it's constantly moving with purpose, it compounds. So here's what modern saving should actually look like. First, saving with a job description. Every dollar that you save should have a reason for being there. Not just in case, but this is my transition buffer. This is my opportunity fund. This is my mistake cushion. And this is my skill investment capital. Money has a purpose, it stops feeling heavy. Second is shorter holding periods. Smart saving in 2026 comes in cycles. Money comes in, it rests briefly, then it gets deployed intentionally. Third is separating growth from safety. This is a massive mistake that most people still make. They expect one pile of money to make them feel calm, keep them safe, grow, or unlock opportunity. But that's too many jobs for one account. Safety money should be boring and accessible, while growth money should be active and purposeful. But when you mix the two, anxiety skyrockets. Fourth is saving for flexibility, not fear. Fear based saving never feels like enough, while flexibility based savings has a clear goal, like how much do I need to make my next move calmly? And that number is often a lot smaller than most people think. Finally, is saving as a tool, not an identity. People who see themselves as savers often resist change because change threatens their identity. But people that see saving as a tool are willing to adapt. In 2026, adaptability beats purity, always. It works with positioning, skills, access, and systems. It supports momentum instead of replacing it. And when saving is done this way, it finally does what it was always supposed to do. It gives you a sense of calm while you move forward, rather than just standing still. The real goal was never saving. Saving was just a means to an end. The real goal, the thing that people actually want, is control. Control over your time, control over your decisions, control over how much chaos your life can absorb without falling apart. And that's why saving money feels so disappointing. Because it was supposed to give you control, and for a lot of people, it just simply doesn't anymore. It gives you a buffer, sure, but not freedom, not confidence, and not peace. What people are chasing isn't just a bigger number in their bank account. It's the feeling of knowing if something happens, they're not trapped. That's resilience, and resilience doesn't come from just one account balance. It comes from flexibility, skills, options, response speed, and the ability to adapt. That's why you'll sometimes see people with less saved feel calmer than those who have a lot saved. Not because they're careless, but because they know how to respond. They trust in their own ability to recover. Saving money on its own doesn't build that trust. It just buys time and delays the inevitable. So if saving money hasn't brought you that peace, if hitting milestones in your savings account hasn't brought relief, and if doing everything right still feels kinda heavy, that's not a personal failure. That's a signal that it's time to evolve the approach. Saving money should support your life, not just pause it. It should give you room to move, not teach you to just stay still. So before you close this video, I want you to think about something. You don't have to answer it out loud. I just want you to sit with it. If saving money was supposed to make you feel safe, why do so many people that save still feel so tense? If discipline was the answer, why does everything right still feel so fragile? And if waiting was the strategy, why does it feel like the future keeps getting more expensive the longer you wait? This video wasn't about telling you to stop saving. It was about having you ask yourself whether the way you're saving actually matches the world that you're living in. Because 2026 isn't about how long you can survive without doing anything. It's about how quickly you can adapt when something actually changes. So maybe the real question isn't how much you have saved. Instead, if something changed tomorrow, how prepared are you to respond? If this video challenged the way you think about money, even a little, that's a good thing. Because the people that win long term aren't the ones that are stuck sitting with old rules. They're the ones that notice when the rules actually change. And they adjust before everybody else does. And that's it for now. Think about your position, not just your balance, and I'll catch you in the next one.